والمزيد من المتابعة ينضم إلينا من إسلام آباد دكتور عقاب عليزاي أستاذ الدراسات الاستراتيجية. دكتور عقاب، كيف تتابع إسلام آباد التصعيد الذي حدث مؤخرا ما بين الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية وإيران، وهل ما زال التصعيد منضبطا في هذه المرحلة؟
I don't think that when a war starts, there is an interest in rules of engagement or attention. The United States is trying to dominate Iran in order to push Iran to the negotiating table that will be beneficial to the United States. And I also think that in this regard, Iran has the same mentality, that it wants to make sure that it will do the same to the United States before the political elections, for the Trump administration in particular. I think that Iran has been able to withstand US strikes over the course of this conflict. Both countries are trying to achieve strategic and political leverage through military action. Unfortunately, this conflict is not going towards a positive outcome so far. Pakistan has nevertheless been pushing the two sides to engage diplomatically, and the Pakistani leadership has been communicating with and dealing with the Iranian leadership, as well as the Gulf states and the United States. I think all sides need to work towards some kind of relative calm, but the interests of Iran and the United States have now shifted away from mediation and negotiations. Despite what Rubio says, that he is determined to have a window open for negotiations. However, Iran will not negotiate in the face of bombing and bombardment. So I don't think any country that has a desire to maintain its position will submit to aggressive, coercive diplomacy. As Foreign Minister Araghchi said before, we will only conduct these negotiations from a position of strength, not with continuous operations and continuous strikes by the United States. And therein lies the problem. How long can this situation last? This situation could last longer than we expect. But the Americans want to facilitate further negotiations because they think that they have the upper hand and insist on an agreement. As I said earlier, the US is using these strikes as a process of renegotiating the Memorandum of Understanding because the Americans have failed to have the upper hand in the previous MOU agreement. Now they are trying to use military strikes as coercive diplomacy to represent diplomatic means. However, this is not really diplomacy, but military operations aimed at pushing Iran to abandon their position on Article 1 and 5 of the MOU. That is the key issue, including Lebanon, and which has been the number one point of the MOU. Iran is trying to ensure that it will also be able to bring the United States into the negotiations, and we are back to square one now. I think they've reached a stage where there is a form of stalemate. Iran has not yet given up, and the United States will not stop its attacks, which they could expand. As escalatory situation is dangerous for the region and for the entire world. The Gulf states in particular do not want the continuation of this path and for this conflict to expand further than it is now, which may lead to a full-scale regional war.
دكتور عقاب، يعني هل المشكلة تكمن في عدم استسلام إيران أم المشكلة في غياب الثقة ما بين الطرفين أو ربما طموحات الرئيس دونالد ترامب في السيطرة على مضيق هرمز؟
I think the Strait of Hormuz was never an issue in the first place, was it? It was created because Iran was attacked in an illegal war of choice by the United States and Israel. And when they had the Memorandum of Understanding, I think the world had a sigh of relief. But Lebanon continued, and it was a number one issue, and it continued, and Iran held up on that and tightened the Hormuz Strait as a leverage point. And this is where it is. It's a leverage, and it will not relent because that's its main leverage to push the United States to come to the negotiation table and to relax a little bit in what it's doing. The Americans feel that they can continue the bombardment maybe for at least another month or two before the midterm election cycle really begins. And I think it's a matter of whether Iran can sustain that. And the attacks may get worse. I think the US administration, current Trump administration's credibility depends on that. If he doesn't succeed in this, he will not really win the elections at all. I don't think he's going to win right now, but I think it will be a massive defeat. And he can't sustain that. So he's going to try as much as possible to make sure that he does win. That's where the problem lies. It's a personal ambition as well. That's where it's very unfortunate that countries suffer as a result of this. But there's no knowing what will happen, and Pakistan can only try, as well as its Qatari colleagues, to try to negotiate and talk as mediators to both parties to start relaxing a little bit, not to attack each other as much. And that's where it would matter. Now that Secretary of State Rubio has said that they're willing to open the window for negotiations, there is a possibility. But Iran will not stop, and nor will the United States. And that's where the problem lies. Somebody has to give a little bit.
على طرف انه يقدم بعض التنازلات. Maybe we should wait and see. Thank you so much from Islamabad.
Pleasure.
Auqaab Alizai, Professor of Strategic Studies.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Auqaab.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.